Yo, what's up? Back here in Nebraska, fly back to California in about 2 days. Just felt like I wanted to pick up the camera and record something. Um, feel like a new chapter in my life is unfolding here. Um, and I kind of think it's kind of the final frontier in some ways. You know, the summit is never the summit, the end is never the end. But this one feels a little different. So it's been a couple years since I kind of started this like self-improvement journey. Actually, it's probably been a lot longer than that. Probably started when I was 16, and I'm 21 now, soon to be 22, so around 5 years. But it kind of just started with habits. I remember the first habit I started to build was, actually, do I remember? I was only drinking water, I believe, so drinking no other liquids than just water. That was the first habit I began, so replacing all, juices and soda and stuff like that with just water. Next habit I built was taking cold showers, replacing that with hot showers, or replacing cold showers with four hot showers. And I continued to do that type of habit building system with a new habit every month. For I'm not exactly sure how long, multiple years though. So every month I'd build a new habit at the beginning of each month. And I wouldn't stop doing the one I built in the previous month. I would continue doing all of them. So as you can imagine, eventually my day is starting to get filled with these habits. So my morning routine began to get longer and longer. My evening routine began to get longer and longer. And at that point, I was out of school, or nearly out of school, graduated from high school. And my days became very rigid and lackluster and the same every day because I built these habits. I'm like, well, I have to keep them. I already committed to them. And I didn't commit to a time frame, I committed to them for life. So if my morning routine was, all right, wake up 30 minutes of a little bit of cardio and stretching, I basically just continued doing that same exact routine every morning for years on end. And eventually I almost had like an entire day routine, which became very claustrophobic and suffocating. And eventually kind of burnt out of that habit building system. It was alongside of when I kind of burnt out of my business. My senior summer, I just picked up everything and left, started traveling, kind of ran away a little bit. And coming back after traveling for a few months, I realized, how habits work to a better extent, how the environment plays a very important role, and cues to habits and behaviors, and kind of how momentum and staying on track with a habit, how much power that has versus trying to stop doing something and come back a month later and pick it up like you never left. So that was that beginning of my self-improvement journey. I don't really consider it that much. I think it's kind of cheesy, self-improvement, the term, but when you break it down, it's a pretty cool thing. You're trying to make yourself better and, work on yourself. But anyway, so that was that. That coincided with building my first business, beach care business, that I grew until the point where I was completely suffocated as well. Working pretty much every waking hour in the final weeks leading up to when I kind of burned out and just kind of quit. The last week I remember working at least 80 hours in the 100-degree weather and looking at how much more we have to go and realizing there was no end to it. We were weeks backed up. By the time that week ended, there was no foreseeable end. And it was only, realistic to believe that we would continue to get more work while we were trying to clear out that backlog. And on top of that, my business partner, the guy that had worked with me for many years, was about to go off to college, and I kind of just felt trapped and I couldn't escape. Looking back on it, I don't think it was as bad as I thought it was. I mean, there are many things I could have done differently. Being more proactive with communication with the clients, just letting them know what's going on and what they can reasonably expect, and also being more proactive with finding more employees and building an action plan on how I'm going to address that issue. But I was young, and it was the first time I really dealt with anything like that. So it was a learning experience. Anyway, high school ends, I travel, I come back, and I've got probably $70,000 or $80,000 liquid to live off of. And for 2.5 years, I basically spent that money. My views on money shifted dramatically during that period. Before, I was always be long-term investor, invest for life, in stable index funds and things of that nature. But I adopted a new investment philosophy while I was out of high school, and that was investing in myself, basically. Because if you look at compounding interest and rates of return in the stock market, if I got 11% of my money throughout a lifetime, that'd be an incredible return on investment. So if I invested $100, then getting $11 that year back would be an incredible investment. And then, $11 and whatever that is, 10 cents the next year, and compounding as such. But then I began to think, well, can I get way higher returns on investment by investing in myself rather than some publicly traded company? Because if I spend $20 on a book and that book changes how I view the world for the rest of my life and makes me just 1% more productive or happy or healthy, isn't that going to end up making way more money and a way higher return on investment than 11%? I thought so, because if it increased my ability to produce more cash and more money, then I'd be able to take that money that I made and reinvest it back into myself, increase my knowledge, increase my health, increase my productivity. If I could take a $1,000 course and increase my personal productivity by 10%, well then if I'm making $100,000 a year, the next year I'm gonna make $10,000 more. And I don't know, giving these numbers, it doesn't seem too obvious that one is better than the other, but I guess I just haven't thought about it in a while, and the concrete examples aren't coming to mind. But either way, I was pretty confident that investing in myself was better than investing in someone else's company. So that led me down a lot of rabbit holes on health and spending money on better food and better water, buying books and courses, and spending money on my sleep, mattress, sleep tech, biotech, blood tests, travel experiences, personal growth experiences like that. Pretty much everything I saw as an investment, and I still do see everything as an investment. Everything has some level of return. You can't spend money really and not get something in return. Even if you're donating money, you're gonna get some satisfaction or some feeling of, it makes you feel good. So at the very least, the worst return on investment would be, something that you pay for, it actually lowers. It could be a negative return. So you buy food that's really unhealthy and it gives you this fleeting pleasure that disappears and actually leaves you worse off than before. And just like investing in the stock market, you can invest in things that actually lose you money. So everything I see is an investment. And I spent all that money and I invested all that money really in myself, most of it, and I don't regret spending any of it. But towards the end of that period, I found what I thought was like the key, like the most important thing, the best use of time that you could possibly use your attention and money on, from the perspective of self-improvement, which to me was just always about optimizing and what could I make of myself? What could life be? Realizing potential and pushing the limits. That's been my motivation in that period, at least, and the previous period of the habit building. But anyway, towards the end of that, away from school, away from community, work, spending my own money, investing my own money in myself, kind of exploring, trying to figure it out for myself, I stumbled upon something that I thought was the most important, so much higher value than anything else I'd ever encountered before, and that was this concept of learning how to learn. And the phrase doesn't really hit. It seems maybe kind of cheesy, or like it doesn't make sense, but really the concept itself is groundbreaking in my mind. A radical discovery for myself, and which is learning how the brain actually learns and what learning is, so that you can best use your time to acquire new knowledge. Because actually in school, they never taught us how to learn. They told us what to learn. They said, go learn it. Here's a test. You're gonna have to know what, that stuff is we told you, and you're gonna have to regurgitate it on a test. And so somehow we went through years, some people 20 years, some people 10 years, whatever, of school, decades, and they never taught us one of the most important skills. At the time, I thought it was the most important skill. I don't know anymore, but it's some skill that everybody needs to learn. It's the meta skill, because if you can learn how to learn, and the crazy thing is learning is not intuitive. And once you get out of the age of high plasticity, so when you're a young child, your brain is very plastic and you can learn passively. So you can just be around people that are speaking a language and pick up that language. That window of neuroplasticity in very, very plastic state exponentially decays from when you're born, practically. So from 0 to 7, you're very open and very plastic, and that's that critical window for picking up languages and learning passively, which means you can just hear things and see things and learn them. However, that window of plasticity closes Some people say it closes at 25 or around 25. It doesn't really matter though, because it decays quickly after 7. And so the difference between age 20 and 25 in that passive learning window is not much. They're both near 0. So passive learning goes out the window, and unfortunately, we go to school when we're still in that critical window, being able to passively learn, and the school system kind of revolves around that passive system of learning. And if you think about it, how much does school really change from 1st grade to 12th grade? I don't really think it changes much. It's very similar, the way that it's structured, the time frames, the windows of the testing. It's all pretty similar. There's never a dramatic change, and that's a massive flaw in my opinion with the school system, is that it doesn't ever teach you the difference between passive and active learning, and it doesn't adjust for different schooling and learning philosophies and protocols based on your age. It's kind of a one-size-fits-all. There's changes between 1st and 12th grade, but they're not massively addressing the changing of the plasticity of the brain. Either way, I'm rambling on a tangent, it feels like. So learning how to learn, it's not intuitive. Once you get out of that passive state, that passive window of learning, you need to actively learn to be able to pick up knowledge and to actually gain new knowledge. And active learning requires effort. It requires mental effort and mental agitation. So it actually requires you to go into some level of discomfort and pain and mental discomfort. That's what triggers your brain to say, hey, something needs to change, and will later lead to a changed neural state, whether that means an additional neural structure or strengthening of a already existing neural structure when you're resting. Anyway, learning is not intuitive after you get out of that passive state. It's counterintuitive in many ways. So if you don't know how to learn, if you haven't spent time learning the meta skill of learning, which is 99% of people, it's reasonable to think that you can go throughout your life and learn only 1% of what you could have learned if you learned how to learn at some point. So those are massive numbers now that we're talking about. Because if you learn 100 times more in your lifetime than what you would have learned if you hadn't learned the meta skill of learning at some point, you will be a massively different person. And that meta skill of learning can be applied to anything you want. And you can apply it directly to money. If you want to make more money, you need to learn about money. You need to learn how money works. And you can just take what these people that have spent their entire life learning about and prioritizing money, you can take their book or their course and you can upload it, ingest it, and actually put it into you and conceptualize it in your own mind, which will then change the way you see the world and your behaviors and how you go about living in the world. And so the monetary results and potential of that meta skill are higher than anything I'd ever learned. Because what are you going to do if you spend 50 hours learning, or if you spend 50 hours trying to learn about money, and we're still going off the numbers of, well, this guy's out of the plastic state, he's 25 or 20 or 30 or whatever, he spends 50 hours learning about money, right? Those are 50 hours you can't get back, and those are 50 hours invested into learning how to make money. All right, well, if we're going to go off the numbers of 1% of what he could have learned if he learned how to learn before, then we're going to say he only, what did he get out of that? 50, 1% of 50, what even is that? Is it half an hour? So we're going to say he really got a half an hour of knowledge out of that. versus if he would have spent 50 hours learning how to learn and then went on to learn how to make money, he would theoretically only have to spend half an hour to gain as much knowledge as it took him to spend 50 hours, right? So let's say now he has 100 hours. The first guy spends 100 hours learning how to make money without learning how to learn first. And so he gets 1 hour. He gets 1% of knowledge out of that. So 1 hour. Versus the second guy who splits the 100 hours in half and spends the first half learning how to learn. So now he can learn at a rate of almost 100 times more, because one guy's learning basically nothing and one guy knows how to learn, right? So spends 50 hours learning how to learn and then he spends the second half learning how to make money. This guy now has 50 hours worth of knowledge around money, whereas the first guy spent 100 hours and he has 1 hour to show for it. Do you see how this can radically change someone's life in the long run? Because this guy that knows how to learn and has a motivation and drive to learn how to make money is going to destroy the guy that doesn't know how to learn but wants to make money in the long term. It's going to be basically nothing to everything. It's hard to compare. 0 to infinity. Anyway, that was a massive breakthrough for me, learning how to learn. I thought it was the most important thing, as I said at the time, until I discovered the next massive phase for me, which was mindset. And mindset to me simply means, it's just a simple definition of mindset is just a collection of beliefs. It shapes your worldview, shapes how you react to the world. So it's just about beliefs. And I'm still exploring mindset because these beliefs are extremely powerful. Everything really in life is just is beliefs. You can have someone that lives, these two people that live the exact same life, everything's the same. And you just change a few beliefs and these people will live radically different lives, even though nothing externally changes. One person can be radically happy and fulfilled and one can be miserable. So I started reading this book called Mindset. It's about growth mindset. It's by a PhD in psychology who coined the term growth mindset, which most people have probably heard of, but I actually have no idea what it means. It just means you want to grow or something. I don't know. You can't really intuitively understand it just based off the name. But there's a growth mindset and there's a fixed mindset. And I'm considering making some videos or a video on that book and that concept because it's potentially more powerful than learning how to learn. It's very possible. It really shows how you can become the best at what you do and why some people have a lot of success and why a lot of people don't. And it comes down to what you believe about effort, what you believe about failure, what you believe about intelligence, what you believe about talent, what you believe about abilities. And basically, growth mindset is you believe that you can change and grow your intelligence. Intelligence is not fixed, it's mutable, as well as abilities, as well as talent. All these things can be grown and changed significantly through effort, guidance from experts and teachers, and strategy. Mostly effort though. So if you put in effort, you can become smarter. If you put in effort, you can become more talented. If you can put in more effort, you can get better at anything you do. Right? And a lot of things change downstream when you adopt that belief because it changes the way you see effort. It changes the way you see failure. It changes the way you see all the struggle and all the things. And it makes you want to embrace effort and seek out discomfort and seek out failure rather than shy away from effort, shy away from failure, shy away from struggle. Because in the fixed mindset, you believe intelligence is fixed, you believe talent is fixed, you believe all these abilities are fixed, and you can't change them. So no matter what you do, you're going to always be the same level of intelligence. No matter what you do, you're never going to really change your talent. Some people have more, some people have less. You're not going to change it. So what do? You don't put in any effort, because effort is just a waste of time. It's just a waste of energy. It's pain for no gain. And instead you just focus on your appearance and try to, not trick, but trick people, put on this facade, try to make your fixed level of intelligence appear as high as possible. So you avoid effort, you avoid failure, because failure is a horrible thing in the fixed mindset. That is a validation that you are not good enough and that you never will be. So you avoid failure and effort at all costs. And unfortunately, failure and effort are the ways you grow. They are the mechanisms of growth. You don't grow without effort or failure. So if you have a fixed mindset, you probably don't grow much. And you can apply this back to learning how to learn numbers. If you have a growth mindset and a person with a fixed mindset, it's possible that the person with a growth mindset 100x's the guy with a fixed mindset over a lifetime. Might even be more than that. So now you got these two very powerful things. You're learning how to learn the most important meta skill and mindset, adopting a growth mindset. And I would think this is everything. I've got to figure it all out. This is the most important, biggest needle movers. But now I'm on what I consider the final frontier, and it's taking me almost half an hour to even get to this point. But I think I've now stumbled upon or somehow figured out the final piece of the puzzle of kind of getting what you want out of life and making what you want and having a good life and living to your highest potential, fulfilling your potential. And that is, it kind of comes down to just defining and clearly understanding what you want, defining your why, defining your purpose. What are you living for? What do you actually want? What do you actually value? And those things might seem obvious, but they don't seem obvious to me. And I think this next period of my life is going to be a lot about reflecting and trying to figure out what I value, what I desire, what my purpose in life is. And I think once I figured a clear answer and self-understanding in this respect, I know how to get it. Once I know what I want, I know how to get it. I know how to learn. I know how to gain the skills I need to acquire what I want and have a growth mindset. So I'll seek out effort and challenge and failure and use them as mechanisms of growth. So, I don't know. It's a period more of self-understanding and reflection, and there's definitely resources I'm going to try to look into for helping me figure out what I want out of life. Because there's been a radical change in my life, in my motivation, since adopting a growth mindset, this is all relatively recent, that is at least. And I realized one of my major motivations, because I had a fixed mindset, most people do, 99.9% of people do. If you're not aware of a mindset, you probably have a fixed mindset. My major motivation as a teenager was validating my superiority, proving that I'm better than other people, right? That my fixed traits are better than others. And it sounds kind of nasty, but it's what actually drives a lot of people. And it's not their fault. It's just based on their beliefs, and their beliefs are based on their experience. They don't have control over that. So I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. I mean, I think it could be better if it was changed, but you adopt the growth mindset, and now I don't believe anyone is any superior to anyone else. I believe intelligence and abilities and everything is just the difference between one person being smart and intelligent and another is, well, the person that's dumber or whatever can easily become as smart as that other person, or even smarter through good strategy and effort and guidance. So what now? Like if I believe everyone's equal to some extent and that no one's superior to anyone else, that takes away one of my major, if not the main motivator I've had that drove me to build a business, that drove me to do all these habits. So what now? And that's where this next period comes in, of trying to figure out what I want genuinely deep down. What's going to make me feel the best? Do I just want to be happy? Do I want pleasure? Do I want peak experiences? Do I want growth? I don't know. And I don't think that maybe there will be a simple answer. Maybe there won't be, but I don't know. I just thought I would share this and potentially make a few videos in the future about this new chapter. All right, that's all I'll record for today. I don't know when I'll record next, but felt that I should record this. Peace out.